Hey guys, I'm Nick, and I wanted to give you a brief intro about this insanely long tutorial. This is by far the longest tutorial I have ever recorded. It really consists of 6 absolutely different effects. It's like 6 mini tutorials plus all the storyboarding flow, some tips from my experiences working with clients and showing them the storyboards, doing R&Ds. With this tutorial, I wanted to show you more or less raw workflow without any sort of polishing, so you just could catch my mind about how I proceed from the initial idea that we discussed in the chapter 1 till the R&Ds that are ready to be animated. In the description of this video on YouTube, you will find chapters that will help you navigate through all of these tutorials, because obviously I understand that it might be hard to digest that all in just one take. Absolutely feel free to pick those effects that you want to recreate, and next week we will be animating it all up. And most importantly, if you feel that I haven't covered any of these tutorials enough, please feel absolutely free to reach out and I will do a separate tutorial of this exact effect, covering it, doing it from scratch, or covering the questions that you might have. This project is by far one of the craziest that I've done, and I'm really stoked about how it turns out. I could not imagine that it will be that cool to actually work on this concept, so I want to thank every one of you guys. It was your decision to make me create this project from scratch, so I did my best to explain everything, and I really hope it will be an amazing value for you to learn these effects in this video. Hey guys, welcome to the chapter 2 of our Savage project. Hope that you liked the first part, and if you are new here, be sure to watch it because I'm really trying my best to give you a full set of tips and knowledge to get going in your freelance 3D career. As I said in one of my older videos, I sincerely trust that creating these concept commercial projects is one of the best ways to get hired by a potential client. But that being said, and that's why I advise to watch all the chapters, you gotta know how to communicate with your client, and that's what I explained in the first chapter. And also, crucial point is in your portfolio on the project page below the actual animation video, add some of your R&Ds, storyboards that we will be creating today, maybe a short version of the script. Clients love to see how you proceed from initial idea to the fully finished animation. In this part, we will be working on storyboarding and R&D. Now you can see the fast forward of the storyboard development, and later in this video we'll go through each R&D frame setup and show you how I done it. My overall idea for this project is to visualize the key tones of the aroma of the fragrance, the mood, and these associations we wrote down in the previous chapter. I don't want to do just like pack shots or product renders, and I'm also not the best one who can teach you doing that because I'm more on the Houdini effects side. So I really wanted to focus on creating these experiences, not the kind of usual product ad. If you also check out the, let's say, this amazing Bang & Olufsen commercial by Man with Machine, you also will see that the key frames and scenes are just like experiences and the abstract scenes, not the actual product. Typically, for the storyboard, I often do these super rough 3D blockouts. I hate drawing by hand, and I think because of the number of hours spent in 3D, my brain now doesn't work well with sketching in 2D on paper. And that being said, you can see that our storyboard looks pretty awful, which is absolutely fine for this part, because when presenting this storyboard to the client, I just describe my main idea of the scene, pull up some reference from moodboard, just to give them a sense of what will happen in the scene. It's crucial to make your client understand that it's nowhere near a final result, and storyboard may have some tweaks later on. For the storyboard, I'm using Milanote, thanks to David who showed me this amazing web app. It's super handy for the creative workflow, amazing presets there, and it's free. Here you can see I've debated between modeling or just buying the bottle. And for now, I think I will just go to the 3DMDB, search for maybe a free one, because in like 99% the client will supply you all the models. They might be the CAD models though, and they won't be really suitable, but you can model over them or just retrofit them. So here I found one on the, I think on the CG Trader, bought that model, and import it in Cinema 4D just to understand what we are working with. And yeah, it's a pretty decent model. It's all the components are there and it's all good. Then I quickly checked our script and I needed this kind of close-up shot in 2/3. So really roughly added that to the Milanote. Second shot in my script, and yeah, that was changed quite a lot, but that's why we do the storyboards, because we have multiple iterations and we really see what works and what does not. I wanted to kind of maintain the same angle, just add a bit of fire, flames, or something that will kind of light it up and spice it a little bit. So we had our 2 shots and storyboard done. Then with that flame kind of appearing, I wanted to transition to the curl noise flow. So I just quickly searched Pinterest, grabbed someone's work and just painted it in Photoshop to be more like a lava or something more closer to the flame. And then I was like, all right, at that point I was also debating this this flow, but yeah, let's just stick with me, and because this first version of the storyboard is quite different from what we will have in our R&D phase, but still I want to show you all the process, so here we are. Now I wanted this kind of dark tar flowing on the branch of wood. So I searched from some 3D scans, and while at this time I could not find any free resources, and for the storyboard part I really like to work with the free resources. Obviously for the fragrance bottle we will need that for our actual animation, but in the storyboard I'm not that sure what shots we will be using, so yeah, I'm trying to do only all of that with the free resources. And unfortunately I cannot use any mega scans because I will be adding these project files for you guys to download, so I cannot technically share these mega scans assets. And then I found this on TurboSquid, or on Sketchfab actually, and yeah, it was still like $4, and I was like, if I will go with this shape I probably can just use a tube with a couple of displacers. And here's this quick little trick with the volume measure, so you can just emulate paint or any other viscous liquids by using your main mesh wrapped in volume measure, then add some sort of a cube, add a displacer, add a noise to that displacer, and set the blending mode subtract. So yeah, here you can see that we have these like some sort of a paint or tar or something. Yeah, here you can see it. I was like, all right, let's let it be for this phase of storyboarding. So now the second part, or actually like the next part, was to create some sort of a forest with some trees, and my idea was to show how the shadows move through the daytime. So yeah, it should be just trees. For now it's just like tubes. It's super quick and super rough. It always depends on your budget and your timeline. Because yeah, you can go pretty heavy on storyboarding if you feel that you have a budget for that. I will be honest with you, and this project takes a lot more effort than I planned. I mean, I'm still considering my Patreon as my full-time job, but it takes me multiple days working from early morning till like 10 p.m. So yeah, just remember that I always need to edit all of my footage and also add or record voiceover. So yeah, for now these are just tubes scattered with a random effector in Cinema 4D and just the daylight. So then we want to actually go and create this sort of a desert build-up scene where for now we will be just using some noises, and you can see how adding these in the attribute WOP can produce sort of like abstract terrain thing. And I think I will be doing a separate tutorial covering this in depth, but you can see basically how adding various noises with the various parameters will result in really cool sort of a terrain. So what I wanted to do here is to basically just blend it and then make it bend upwards. So it should go like this, and with some attribute transfers, it is evolving from the like plane surface to the actual abstract desert landscape. Next shot was this kind of coal or rock exploding, and yeah, it's just a simple RBD setup. We will go through it a bit later. And the last shot is kind of our product reveal, because when we start doing these storyboards, for me, it always starts with just like adding some random, really random effects that, of course, somehow are associated with the product or the feelings that product gives you. And they all start pretty random, and then I try in the storyboard, I try to actually like set up some sort of a logical flow between one or another scene. In this case, it's about building the interest with these really abstract environments and effects, and then we reveal the product to say that, hey, all of these things that you just saw, they are somehow connected to our product, which is in fragrance. And logically thinking, you could assume that it's all connected to the aroma of the fragrance. English is not my native, so I might explain my ideas a bit crumpled. So here you can see that we add a few grains and add a collider, and then add pop forces to our grains and wipe out just the top layer that initially covers our fragrance. So that's how our first iteration of the storyboard looks. I would call that this first iteration might be your kind of like internal, so you just like do this, then good practice is to get a day off, and then when you are refreshed, you just, I don't know, walked in the forest, just breathe some fresh air or something, and then you realize that this one is not close to the result that you want to achieve. So then you create another storyboard, which is our version 2, and here it's not complete, but you can see that I have reordered some of these shots. Some of these have been taken out, and here I kinda better understand the connection, because here with the tar will be black, and yeah, and all this stuff. And this storyboard, I would add a few things if I would go and present this to the client. But starting with this storyboard, we can really work on our research and development frames, because we basically have all the key shots here. So yeah, it's good. And then we open up our RnD, and this is what we will be covering. And this, to me, it's much more easy to understand, and I think at this stage your client won't be worried about what you are doing. So bear with me as I update these descriptions really fast. So now you can see here I have all the shots aligned and kind of with the proper descriptions. And basically our flow with this project would be starting with this sandalwood forest. And by the way, guys, I will share all the models here, so you will have a pack of these trees, asteroids, this branch. Obviously some of these are CC attribution, or I think, yeah, the license called CC something. So if you use this in your projects, be sure to add the text. You will find the README document in the project files. So yeah, we start with this forest, and we kind of reveal, you know, for the transitions between the shots. Here in this project, I push heavy on how the lights are animated. So we kind of transition from the pitch black screen to each of these shots. I thought it might be a cool way to kind of bind the one shot to the second one to the any other shot. So yeah, we start from the pitch black forest time lapse, lights going through the trees wiggling a bit in Cinema 4D, and then we kind of show a close up of the tree branch that gets covered in this deep dark blue tar. The tar is made in Houdini with a particle growth system, and we do a subtle pan with lights moving through, because here and in the actual Dior photography, they always had this cold and really warm fire lights in their shots. And then we transition to the, again, pitch black, but with lights animated and revealing the top part of the bottle. I really like these reflections here, so to add that little bit of spice, I don't know. We make fire simulation in Houdini, and we show how the fire builds up from the bottom of the bottle. So then I don't know how, but I will see when I will be animating, and obviously I will document that process too. We do this desert build-up thing with also kind of like night shot when it's pitch black, and then we rotate the lights and build our landscape. After that, we switch to the nighttime, and then we switch to the pitch black. And in the shot 8, I just wanted to show something like more dramatic and packed with action, so we do this crazy glowing RBD explosion of the charcoal, and when the fireflies blur out in the frame, we finally transition to the sand simulation that reveals the product. I might tweak lighting for this shot a bit, but yeah. So now the main part starts, and let's go shot by shot, and I will explain you in detail how I did each of these shots. So this first scene is made in Cinema 4D. It's just a plane that it's angled a bit. Let me also stop the render just for now. And yeah, it's the plane that has 30 degrees angle. It's really massive. My bad, I didn't kind of match the scale in this scene. And I'm using these trees. Here you can see them. Those are actually sandalwood, as it says in the fragrance description. So we have these 3 types of trees. I don't want them angled, and that's why here in the cloner, you can see that cloner itself is minus 30 degrees, and then in the transform, it's actually like 30 degrees positive. So when I enable the cloner, you can see that our trees are not angled. They are actually like angled to compensate the angle of the grid. And I wanted to see some sort of a hill look, so I wanted some trees to be lower, and some trees here should be not taller, but yeah, they are placed higher than the rest of the trees. For the trees materials, these textures came with these trees. Yeah, so we'll talk about the materials a bit later. In the cloner itself, clones set to mode set to grid, clones to iterate. You can use random maybe use just the iterate. And it's 5x5 grid, so it's 5 and 5. And the spacing between them is still pretty abstract. To break it down, here in the effectors, you can see that here's our super uniform looking grid, and I've just added this random effector here. I'm influencing the position, rotation, and the scale. They can rotate freely 360 degrees on their axis, and 3 degrees moving them like here or there, so they are not that uniform. See here, just 3 degrees. And yeah, very basic forest. For the grid itself, just a plane with a bit of displacement noise. Yeah, for the materials, that's where it gets a little bit complicated, but yeah, still. You can see here I'm using this very tiling texture. Note that for this project we will be using a lot of displacement, so you're gonna need to set your redshift tag here, and in the geometry tab be sure that you enable both displacement and tessellation. And you obviously want to check this override, because with that it will all be inactive. And maximum displacement here is set to 50, which is pretty high number. Here I have 2 free materials downloaded from somewhere from the internet, and they are pretty standard. I mean, nothing crazy here. And this was just to kind of visualize it. So yeah, base color, roughness, normals goes into the bump map, tangent, space, normal, and the height map goes into displacement. Be sure to check that all of these 3 textures, or actually these 2 textures, roughness and normals, should be color space row, not sRGB as it will be. So I have my roots here, and then let's fire up our render. You really can see the displacement here, and of course it's very tiling, so yeah, but still the texture looks good to me, even for some close-ups maybe. Then we have our ground texture, which is set up completely the same like it is for our roots, but it's just this more like a rocky ground. Let's turn out the post effects, or actually we could just select enable post effects and we'll remove it all. Here you also can see the displacement going on here. I don't know how to better show you, but yeah, they always kind of mix. So we have our displacer with a noise that actually transforms the geometry, and then there are textures that also use the displacer. And then I have this material, which I think it's really better did in Octane, because you can just plug these two materials into one material, and then if you want to tweak something, you actually go to these materials. But basically here is my RS material, which looks like a complete mess. And here, let me show you. Let me just quickly arrange these into a more kind of organized way. So what I have here is the exact same roots material. Here you can see the normals, basically everything without displacement going into our first roots, and here's our second roots. And I don't know why I cannot navigate. Let's try it one more time. Yeah, somehow, oh, all right. So turns out, basically, yeah, two same roots materials, just these are rotated 60 degrees and these are not. So that's how I can break the uniformity of these roots, break the repetitions of these roots. Here I'm using Material Blender. Here it is. And maybe there's a way to show this panel here, so I don't need to switch between this window and this window, but I couldn't find this. Yeah, I'm still very aligned to the Octane, but yeah, unfortunately Octane crashes a lot on Mac, so I cannot use it. So yeah, then this Material Blender, and basically, yeah, mix between this material, which is 60 degrees rotated roots, and these are our original roots, and I'm using Maxon noise just to mix it. So whatever the Maxon noise has white value, it will be our 60 degrees rotated roots. Whenever the Maxon noise is black, it will be our kind of initial roots. This is our ground texture, and I'm mixing our ground texture with a mix of our roots. So Material Blender goes into another Material Blender, and the ground goes into Material Blender. And I'm using that same noise to mix these two. Now, kind of abstract way to add displacement, but yeah, there is this displacement blender, which basically mixes two displacements. Blender weight set to 0.5. It's not set to anything like noise. I could basically use noise and then convert it to this scalar, because this blend weight wants the scalar input, but yeah, I thought let's go with this one, because the ground will be pretty much covered with the trees. So let's just try adding our trees back, and if we move our camera something here, yeah, I think the displacement looks good. So let's bring our camera where it should be. This is the redshift camera with a focal length set to tele, so 135 millimeters, and I see that I might need to extend this plane here like this. And of course, these are not the lights that I want to use. So let's remove these, and let's just use our physical sun, which shines from somewhere from the top this side, or no, actually this side shines like this. And then what I wanted to do here is just to rotate the sun and add a little jiggle to the forest. But I will do that in our third chapter, which will be animating and rendering it all out. So that's basically about our forest. Don't forget to enable post effects. Boom. A little bit color controls, photographic exposure, a little bokeh, and yep, nice render. As you can see here, we could actually go with, I don't know, plain black ground, but as I will be actually moving the sun, ground might be visible, so yeah, it's better to do that than just skip it all the way. Now let's take a look at our second scene, which is our tar going on our branch of 3D scanned wood. Again, free 3D scan from Sketchfab called Trunk Photogrammetry by k.kokinos. Hope that I pronounced that right. But all of these will be linked in the README file. So yeah, this one is pretty easy. So what we have here is our tree branch, which is just, yeah, a little bit transformed, I mean scaled down. And this scaling is just for our tar to be a bit bigger than the tree, so we properly see all the details. And then this attribute deleting shop material pass, so our red shirt materials work well with the branch. That's basically it. And for the tar, let's check it out. So one of the tricks I learned from some old YouTube tutorials. I honestly don't remember who it was, but yeah, I mean, this is a super cool trick. So basically you can remove the geometry you don't see using the camera volume. So what you can see here is object merge out branch. Actually, yeah, I must move this up here. So it's my branch, just remeshed it and added this null. So yeah, I'm importing it here. I can plug it just directly, but I think it's just a bit more organized way to reference it. And then I drop this volume, and this volume, here you can set the name to density, initial value 111, and dimensions should be set from camera. And I have my camera here, cam 2. So basically, if I, let's say, go back here, you can see here's my camera 2. And if I set this volume to be from camera, and here in the attribute triangle, I'm right that I want to take the volume sample from the first input, which is our volume. And this is 0, 1, 2, 3, so first input. And if it's less than 1, I remove that point from our first input and from our zero input, this object. So here you can see I removed everything that's not visible to my camera. If I go back to camera 2, it's all just the things that are inside the camera. Super cool trick, not mine, just learned it from somewhere from the YouTube. There are the things that I just don't remember where I seen, but all the sources will be also in that README file. So just in case you want to explore some awesome creators on YouTube doing Houdini or cinema or any sort of motion design tutorials, there will be linked in the README file. Then working with this one, I add a sphere, drop a mountain node, displace that sphere. It's super ugly, but we don't care because we just want to use that group, that sphere, that displaced craziness to create a group. And this group type set to points, group name set to heated. Keeping bounding regions is enabled and bounding type is bounding object. So basically where this displaced sphere is intersecting with our trunk, these points get selected. Then we drop an attribute create and we create the attribute called temperature. Don't forget that we want to create this attribute only for the heated group, only for these points. And the default is set to 0 and value is set to 1. So basically all the points receive the temperature attribute equal to 0, and only the heated group receives the attribute equal to 1. Then pretty default pyrosource spread. In temperature change, rate is set to, cooling rate is set to 0 because we don't want any sort of cooling. We want it to kind of grow. We don't want it to anywhere to shrink. Rate is set to 0.1, through radius to 0.5, and noise type set to Manhattan cellular, yep. So if I visualize it, press the diffusion, here you can see I also changed the element scale X positions. So if I do 1, it's more like a uniform noise. And if I said 8, it gets stretched. So that's what I want. Then the fuel, I think I just changed the noise type to be purulent flow and element scale to 45 by X. So if we visualize it, you can see it's really stretched on the X. And then in combustion, ignition temperature 0.8 and burn rate 0.9. So what it gets us, if we visualize the, let's say, temperature, you can see it's spreading out like that. Or if we visualize the total burn, I think the total burn, here you can also see how it goes through the mesh. Obviously, it goes really slow. So what I did, I retimed. So I dropped a retime node, set speed to 2, evaluation mode by speed, of course, output range from 1 to 150, and input range from 1 to 300. So we basically shrink 300 frames in 150. Here it goes. Then I dropped an attribute remap. I've used attribute remap here, but never realized we don't use it actually. So then I add a group, called it heat. Base group is our total burn attribute more than 0.1. So basically everything that's burning right now or has been burned is in that group. So here you can see actually how the flames or that burn spreads pretty organically, I would say. And then we drop our pop network. Here in the pop network, it's all pretty default. Again, in our pop solver, min substep set to 2, max substep set to 3. In the pop object, yeah, all default. In the source first input, the source is set to all points and the source group is set to heat. And for the burst, impulse activation set to 1. So, yep, that's it. You can see if I played, you can see that new particles are spawning as the burn group is increasing or growing. And then I have this pop wrangle, and here I set the P scale to be 0.01. And velocity change, you can see that, and actually, yeah, we don't have any forces here, so we technically don't need a velocity change, right? So yeah, it's just this expanding and growing thing here. So then I file cached my 150 frames. Let's remove the visualization from the Pyro source spread, and let's go back to our file cache, and here you can see how it all grows till the frame 150. And now let's mesh it out. So let's say drop a VDB from particle fluid, and I think the particle fluid for any sort of viscous liquids, and it works the best. So here I unchecked rebuild SDF and resample input is checked. Particle separation is 0.01, voxel scale 0.35, which is changing depending on your particle separation count, or not like particle separation, but the density of your particles in PopNet. And this is already looking pretty good. I want to drop a VDB reshape SDF, operation set to erode. Then I want a VDB smooth SDF. Here the operation set to mean curvature flow and duration set to 4. You can see that it's just smoothing it just a little bit, and compared to this one, of course, yeah. And then I drop another VDB reshape SDF and set it to be dilate. Then I converted VDB to the polygons, ISO value, adaptivity all set to 0. And yeah, I think we have our pretty good looking vicious sort of a tar thing here. And drop the color, yeah, I think just to better visualize that. And here if I drop a merge and merge our out branch to our tar, you can really see how it expands and covers our branch. On frame 150, I think it's covering pretty big chunk of that branch. Yeah, like this. It does not go any up, because actually if we enable our camera to, you can see here it doesn't have anything to go up. So yeah, that was my setup for this one. And this merge is just for a preview. Let me call it a preview. And of course here we just want to export the tar. We also don't need color for the rendering, so yeah. Let me pop the redshift viewer. And by the way, I think if now we are working with a like horizontal frame, which is 16:9, which is different from what I usually do, which is like those Instagram Reels or TikTok style resolution, we can click here and we can split pane top bottom. And here we can new pane tab, redshift, render view. And now we can click render and check what we get here. And of course we want to use our object camera 2, enable our branch and zoom out a little bit. And here you can see we have our tar and our tree. I want it to be sort of a dark noir thing. So yeah, for the tar, it's just like sort of a plasticky look with just a little bit of roughness. For the trunk, there was a texture that fits absolutely perfectly. It's in the project files. So yeah, just plug that here, upped the roughness quite a bit. And for the lights, let me turn all of these off. So this one, intensity set to 30, temperature set to very cold blue light. And it's kind of like sort of a fill light, right? I still want to get this very dark, but yeah, maybe let's increase the size. And yeah, now it's definitely a fill light. If we go to the frame 1, when we don't see that tar that much, here you can see probably that it actually shines on the trunk. And yeah, here I think I wanna go with 1. And intensity, I think 30 will be good. And then I added this really warm light to this side, which you will see here. So this nice contrast again like with their original photography for the Savage backshots, cold light and the very warm light. And then I wanted something to be really focusing on the reflections of the tar. So I added this one additional light that you can see shines with a super cold temperature on the tar here. So that's it for this scene number 2. Now we are in the scene 4, or it's scene 3/4, I would say. And here we will be setting our bottle on flame. So for our bottle, let me just remove the lights for now. And yeah, let's check out the bottle. So this is just a export from Cinema 4D. Let me also stash, so you don't need this C4D file actually. And see, if I select the stash, it basically just kind of bakes the information into the HIP file. So yeah, you don't need this Dropbox courses, Dior for grants, and all that stuff. You basically, yeah, you don't need that. I don't do this with a file cache though, because yeah, then the HIP file will become few gigabytes. But yeah, the stash node is pretty useful. So what do we have here? We drop our fragrance ABC, which is that same bottle, but without a few details that we don't need. It just consists of the cap base, which is steel and or aluminum, and then the bottle itself. So there are no these little pipes or something, and yeah, just that stuff. Then I do this much size, so to make it 20 by 20 by 20, pretty big bottle. Then I assign the material to the group. As you can see here, we have a few groups. That's from the it's basically the face selection in the Cinema 4D. So I drop this group, material, cap material, then cap base, this cap base shape group, another material, and these materials are all made in a material network, which I will show you just in a minute. And then you can see that we have incorrect facing geometry of the bottle. So we still, here in the reverse, we can source our group, which is bool shape, which is this bottle. We can reverse it, so only this part is reversed. And then I apply the material, and then of course we will need to fix the normals. And here in the normals you can also set your group to be only this one. That's the thing I really love with Houdini. You just can target any sort of group anywhere. Just think about it, let it sink in your mind, because this is one of the crucial points in the workflow in Houdini. I'm still not sure about this mesh size and transform. I could do better here, but just because my simulation is bind to the size and I don't want to mess up things here, you could probably do all of that just in your mesh size, but let it be for now. This uniform scale 0.9 is because I was experimenting with the fire on the cap, so I wanted this cap to be a little bit smaller than our set on fire cap. So yeah, then we have our grid, which is a grid. And then, interesting part here, so for this cap. So our cap ABC, it's also referenced from the export from the Cinema 4D. And the main thing with this cap is that I deleted everything from the inside. It actually has kind of like the shape of that nozzle, that thing that you push to spray. But yeah, essentially that's just that plain cap. So I used that same stash, so you don't need to import the cap ABC, which is somewhere deep in the project. So yeah, converted that to the polygons because it's Alembic and I want polygons. Just drop a convert node. I think same thing should be done here. Yeah, the convert node here from convert to polygon from alembics, because alembics are packed initially. So yeah, that's our cap. So my initial idea was to render the bottle and then at some point the cap starts to burn. I'm not sure if I like that actually. So that's why I selected my cap. And here, if we go to our shelf tools, we can go check the pyro effects and we select the spreading fire, and it will create these 3 nodes: cap source, fire simulation, fire import. And I would say let's go and check it out, every node. We can go cap source. It's all created here by default. The only thing that I have changed is the create hot group, which I created, which has this box here, and I've just made it bigger. So it was spreading from, I think, this one little point here on the side. I wanted to go upwards, so I just made this whole box bigger, and it covers these points here. Make region hot as, yeah, it's all, I think it's all default. Simulate spread, it's here. You can see the points that will be burning first. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this node. Yeah, I've just manipulated this box here. And don't forget to select out burn. For our actual simulation, I think it's all default here also. Yeah, it's just like going on fire like this. Obviously it takes a bit of time to calculate, but yeah. I mean, after the fire simulation, you will have this fire import node, and of course you want to run your file caching in .io. So here import from dops will be default, and here in save to file, you should select your frames and click save to disk. And then when it's done, load from disk, this checkbox will be automatically checked. So now you can visualize that fire. By default, this post-process node will have apply look and assign render material checked. For the redshift, we don't want that. Here you can just preview your fire. Yeah, but for the rendering, you should remove this checkboxes here in the apply look and assign render material. Here in the transform, yeah, I've just made it a bit bigger, and now you see that it's still our bottle cap. But what I wanted to do here in the fire import, I actually translated it down and applied uniform scale. So if we visualize our bottle, you can see here that our flames are inside the bottle, and it produces that really cool look that you can see in the storyboard. And also now when I will visualize this and fire up the render and talk about materials. But that's basically it for the fire simulation. This shelf tool spreading fire is absolutely amazing for just really quick fire spreading simulation. Yeah, let me just uncheck the apply look and assign render material. Actually, yeah, like this and this, we don't need that. So what do we have now? Let's talk about the cameras. Using two cameras, cam 1, cam 2. Cam 2 is just for like preview and rotating, just to visualize some details that I wanted to see while working. So yeah, like camera 1 is our main camera. We have, yeah, let me just visualize the redshift, I think. Let's do the same thing as we did before here in split pane top bottom. And here let's select that we want to redshift render view. Let me also enable the lights. We probably want to add our grid as it was. And I think one of these lights should not be visible. I think the RS light 2 should not be visible. Yeah, now this is the same look that I actually had. We might want to move this, yeah, a little bit like that. Oh, but now I see that this bottle actually has a few more details that we absolutely don't need. So let's drop another node here, which is delete, and we want to delete everything that's not cap based. Oh, actually we just want to delete our perfume, which is, I think it is that bit here. Yeah, right. So now it works. Cool. Because this model has kind of like a container inside for the liquid, which we are not doing because we don't see it, right? So now let's enable our fire import, our grid, and switch to our camera 1. You can see the flames here, looks pretty nice. So yeah, that's what I wanted to do here. For the lights, you could also see that one is super cold and it's basically shining this highlight on the edge of the cap, and this light is a bit less cold, but still it's our backlight that produces this awesome reflection on the side of the glass. Now let's go through the materials. It's nothing too crazy here. So material for the cap is just plastic with a little bit of roughness, set to very dark blue. For the bottle material is just preset, it's glass. the index of refraction is set to 1.3. The cap base is just a preset of aluminum, and the color is set to be a bit darker than it is by default. And the grid is absolutely rough black grid, just to give us a bit more kind of indirect reflections of the glass. And actually now I think we can get it to -7. Yeah, with this really nice, very subtle backdrop here. Finally, we can tweak our smoke material, which is basically our volume. I had my volume and smoke material here, but actually I found out that it's not working like that. You want to go into the shop, your shop net. Here you want to set your redshift warp net, and here you want to select your volume. You just basically drop your volume here. So the density, absorption, it's all default here, but here in the emission, the channel should be flame. In my case, scale is set to 4, because if I select the scale to 1, it's very subtle. I mean, it's more realistic, but in this case, I want to select the scale and set it to be 4, just because I wanted really like that flames. I want them to pop. And the color channel set to temperature. If I remove the temperature here, you can see that it's becoming less saturated. If I add the temperature, it actually shines more. That's the look I'm wanting here, especially with this. And then we just go and apply it here in our OBJ, into our file import, render shop redshift warp net. Nice. I think we don't need this little tube here, so let's just add it to the delete groups. Tube shape. Yeah, nice. So we don't have it here. All right, so I think that's it for this one. I will be covering the redshift settings in another scene, because it's all very default from scene to scene. But yeah, essentially that's how it is. For the actual animation, what I'm thinking is getting this fire import and just going from -10, which we don't see any sort of fire, to going to -5. So it will be just like a rapid build up of that fire there. So yep, I think that's it for this one. And yeah, now let's move forward. So now we are in our scene 6, and this one is a foundation for all of these shots, at 6 and 7, which is sort of a build-up of this desert environment. And I think when I will be animating this, I will have a bit more kind of like picture in my mind on what exactly I want this to look, because there are a few really cool effects we can do here. So let me just show you the setup. It's super easy, but yeah, I really like this effect here. So if we go to our desert, we can see that we start with just a plain grid, which is a pretty dense grid. If we enable, let me turn off the redshift viewer and let's take a look at our grid. Yeah, it's pretty dense. So it's 50 by 50 and 2000 rows and 2000 columns. We obviously want to UV unwrap that. As it's a grid, we can just drop a UV unwrap and that's it. And then we want to start adding our noises. So here is this also basic setup of the noise. So we want to add the noise to the Y value of our each point in our grid. So first of all, we want to do this vector to float and float to vector. So we plug position into the vector and we get our 3 floats. So it's X, and X goes to the float to vector, which does the reverse thing. So it takes 3 vectors and 3 floats and creates a vector. So X goes to the X, Z goes to the Z, because we don't want to displace our points in the X and Z. We just want a Y. And float vector then goes to the position of geometry of output. So it's all clear there. But for our noise, we want to select our P and drop it here into position of our anti-aliased noise. And signature should be 3D input, 3D noise. Frequency, in this case, it's 0.1, 1, and 0.1. Amplitude 5, roughness 0.495. And then we grab our Y value from our vector to float. We drop an add node and we add this noise to our add node. We can switch to 1D noise to be like absolutely correct, but since we just grab that one value, it actually doesn't make any difference here. So that's kind of our base. It already looks like terrain for me, but let's make it a little bit more interesting and maybe a bit more realistic. So that's our primary noise, and then I want to add some sort of a protruding, not like hills, but maybe some sort of a river that was evaporated. So basically, here vector to float and float to vector is absolutely the same as we had in our previous noise. And here, what I want to do here is just kind of add this little expression. So we drop a subtract constant node, and in this case constant is 1 or 0. Yeah, sorry, it's 0 here. And it's crucial that this constant goes into the first input and our y value goes into the second input. And then the difference here, we plug that into our position and frequency of our turbulent noise. Signature set to 1D noise, noise type sparse convolution noise, amplitude 0.42, roughness 0.02, attenuation 0.8, and turbulence set to 5. And then same thing, we add that to our position, plug that into our float to vector, plug that vector to our position. That's how we get these ridges here. And then I want to displace it even more. So let's add some sort of a hills, or like extrapolate that terrain that we already have. So here, absolutely the same thing that we've done in the previous one, is just the different parameters here in the turbulent noise. We're using noise type alligator noise, frequency 0.1, 1, and 0.1, amplitude 1, roughness 0.095, attenuation 0.12, and turbulence 1. So you can see that we kind of have our terrain, and I like that how it looks now, but we can push it even more. So what I want to do is make some sort of islands where there's absolutely or much less noise than it is, because right now it's super noisy and it's more like a Mars terrain or something. So what I can do is here I can drop an attribute noise float node, attribute name I selected to be field, and then I just played with these noises. So noise value, range values should be 0 centered, amplitude 0.9, noise pattern purling flow, element size 4, offset 4.4, fractal 2.62, linearity 1.46, roughness 0.027. I suggest you really play with these values because they all produce different results. And then if I go and select my field here, drop it into the color node, ramp from attribute, range 0 and 1, and let me visualize that. Here you can see that we have our attribute visualized, our field attribute visualized. Now let's drop a attribute triangle, plug that attribute into the first input and our last attribute warp to the second input. And here we can grab our value, which is at field. And then we can use linear interpolation to, as you can see here, all the areas where this noise is black here, they will receive or actually stay that noisy. And all the areas where it's white or actually like light gray something, it will be our kind of islands without the actual noise. And this looks much more realistic to me than this, because it's yeah, I don't know, it's up to you actually. But yeah, basically this linear interpolation function, it basically grabs the point position and another point position, and it interpolates with that value that we give. And value in this case is from 0 to 1 because our value is our field. So we write lerp, open brackets, we grab the point from the first, like 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's this input. We grab the input from our hills. We want to grab the position. So it's first input position from the point that is accessible through the point number. Then the position of our first or like zeroest input, but yeah, it's complex to describe it. Basically it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's basically, if we write here 1, it's this input. And if we would write 0, it will be this input. So then we grab a point of our 0th input. So it's like the one with the field, which doesn't have any noise. And then, yeah, we have our value. And that's how we interpolate between two parameters. This already looks pretty good to me, but yeah, for the animation, I wanted to kind of make that desert to appear. So we'll be using attribute transfer. So I have our sphere colored in red, add a mountain node just to kind of displace it. And then I have my grid, which is here. I'm coloring it to black. And remember that our sphere is red. So 1, 0, 0, and black is 0, 0, 0. And I add attribute transfer. I animate that transfer. Attributes here, point attribute set to CD. So now if I do the attribute transfer, and because I'm animating these values here, distance, threshold, and blend width, you can see how it basically grows. Boom. So now what I want to do is create another attribute triangle and do that same interpolation, but now it's based not on the field value, but on the color's red channel, because here the color is black, so red channel is 0. Here in the color of the sphere, red channel is 1. So now I want to interpolate, so everything that's red will be noisy, or like will have the landscape, and all that's black won't receive any noise. So here you can see it, how it goes and expands here. Technically for this opening shot, that's it. But here you can experiment in a, I don't know, crazy amount of things. And I think I will be doing some YouTube tutorial for this effect, but yeah, it will be sometime later. But here we should subdivide it, but it will be really heavy, because right now it's already 4 million points, and if we subdivide it, it will be 16 million points. So for now, I think let's go and let's just check out the smoothing node. It's attribute blur, pin border points unchecked, step size 1, blurring durations for now is 0, but check it out. If we go here and let's say we want to select, and let's say we want to create some sort of erosion effect, which is kind of like, I don't know, it might not look realistic enough, but I mean, as I'm updating this smoothing, you can see that if I say, let's say 500, 200, or 5000, I don't know. Oh, 5000, and we will crash right now. Oh no, actually. But yeah, see? So really cool effect could be done here. I have my cameras set up here, and what we want to do now is, I don't know, maybe let's go through different lighting setups for first, and then we will go to the materials. So as it was with the trees, I'm using the sunlight. These are all redshift light dome, and 2 suns. These are for like 2 different setups. So let me enable one by one. For example, this night sky, which has really dark color and is basically, yeah, just complementary light. We also have a lot of post effects here, so yeah, now it's completely pitch dark. That's the power of post effects, by the way. So let me disable this one, but yeah, you get the idea. The night sky is basically very dark sky, and then I have this night light, which basically shines from this angle here, this area light, and I have my another sunlight, and I think this was the one I used for my kind of like night shots, right? So yeah, I will be combining these lights. My main light though is this. Let me disable these. So that's the sunlight, and you see that I keyframe the rotation of the sun. So I know that I changed it for one shot, but still. So we start with this kind of like midday sun. Let's select our camera 3. Yeah. So we start with this midday sun, and then as we transition to this build up, you can see that sun rotates around, and here you can see that shadow. So if I go, it actually, I think I've modified some parameters, but the idea was that sun goes from here, not the sun, but the shadows will go actually from I don't know, maybe something here. It goes all the way to the darkness, and then the night light also appears somewhere. Yeah, so that's the idea behind this desert shot. I think I will use a few different variations just in a quick sequence. Yeah, but the main idea is that I wanna end it up in a pitch black just to make a smooth transition to our next shot, which is this coal RBD explosion. But before we proceed with our coal RBD simulation, let's take a closer look at the materials I'm using here. So let's just grab another camera, change the angle a bit so we can see all the details. Let's zoom in here quite a lot. Here you can see yeah, obviously we should focus on this point here, and maybe let's zoom in a little more because it's really tiny texture, right? So here I found this angle. I think it works pretty good. And what we can do here is, yeah, let's select our focus once again, and let's go through the materials where exactly that one material that we have here. Let me organize it a little bit so it's easier for you to understand what's where, and now it looks better. So yeah, we have our like default material here, but let's go and visualize some of the noises I'm using here. So what I have here is two noises that are mixed together. First being this noise here. Let me plug it into the diffuse and let's wait for it to initialize. So this noise is sort of a very large one. It doesn't have much details. If I, let's say, pick the camera 3, you will see that it's just these like splotches of noise here. So, and if I pick this second noise, this is more like the fine details. And of course, let me unplug this bump map for now. So this second noise is much more detailed. Let me enable our camera 1. So this noise is, yeah, again, much detailed. And I can control the mixing between these two noises. For example, if I select this mix amount, and now if I change it to 0, it will be this noise here, and something in the middle is the mix of 2, and yeah, if I enable 1, it will be this extremely rough and very detailed noise. But yeah, I think I want something in the middle. Also here I'm using this RS ramp that goes from this color, from our noise color, and I can plug it into the diffuse to visualize it. It will be this kind of, yeah, you see, it's basically grading from this light brown kind of wet sand to the absolutely black one. But yeah, I don't want this particular color because you can see here, if I switch to the large camera, we can really see that it's much more. We can really see these blocks of noise, and I don't want it. I want to just overlay the noise. So if we go like this, you will see that these packs of noise are more subtle, and that's because we are mixing it in blend mode overlay. I don't know, maybe we can set it to something dodge, which will be pretty crazy, you know, or I know, add. Yeah, see that there are very different results. So that's why, yeah, we stick with the overlay. But also I add another node, which is this noise, which is set to noise type cell. And here I can show you how it looks. You maybe won't see it from that close of a distance. So let's go to our camera, disable post effects for now, and here you can see these splotches. And if I go and select 0.1, and this actually, if I remember correctly, I wanted to do this like, I don't know, in 40. Yeah, let's try this at 40 actually, because I think I have mistaken with the scale here. And if we plug this to our color, what we will have, restart the render. Here in the RS color mixer, we can actually tweak the amount. So let's check what we got. Yeah, I think this one looks pretty cool. And let's try, here I have another noise in the bump channel. Let's plug it in. So overall bump input, our RS noise is a fractal noise, complexity 12, bump map, high field, height scale 0.1. I don't want it to be in particular like super bumpy, but what I want to do here is maybe add bump map or bump blender. So now what I want is get this noise here, get in the bump map, remove this one, plug this noise with our little like a graders or something to here into the input. And now I want to plug this into our base and this into our layer 0. And yeah, let's see what we got now. Bump input here. I think we should, okay, we have these bumps now. So if we go out and turn this a bit, what we will have is noisy render. Oh, of course we need to adjust the blend weight. So 0.8. I don't know. It looks not that bad, but oh yeah, nah, that looks bad. But actually, let's just take a view. Oh no, it looks so bad. But actually, we can add a bit of detail with that bump noise. What if we go and actually decrease the scale here to something like 20? Yeah, I think I like that. Tweak the range. Yeah, this is too much, right? So let's go 0.1 and just to visualize. No, I definitely want something 0.1, just a really subtle thing here. So yeah, again, this RS noise, fractal, complexity is 3, amplitude gain 1, everything else is default. This RS noise is also fractal, but complexity is set to 9, amplitude gain 1, frequency scale 2, and everything else is default. And overall scale is 2, scale is 4. I don't know, but I mean, this works for me. And here scale is 1, overall scale is 1, and scale is 4, still 4. So yeah, I think that's how you create this bit more interesting shader for your landscape. You can see here that we have these rough edges and we can tweak either our smoothing out thing or we can risk it all and let's enable the subdivision right now. So here's our landscape, and of course we can enable a bunch of post effects here. I don't know, color control, photo exposure. I think I used some flares. Yeah, what else? Bokeh. I don't want any bokeh here. Oh, aces, of course. So yeah, that's for this desert scene. And now let's check out our charcoal RBD explosion. And here's our absolutely crazy RBD explosion thing with our coal, some fireflies, some dust, and let's maybe turn off these lights as we usually do, just to see a bit better. So yeah, in brief, that's a model. Again, the 3D scan distributed under this CC license. Let's go and check out the simulation here. Maybe for this one, we should also, just for the sake of safety, stash the input. So yeah, this charcoal is really cool 3D scan. We obviously might not need all of these details, right? But yeah, we can drop a mesh size. Mesh size, target size set to 555. Check the scale to fit. Then transform. I placed it up 5 units just because I wanted to test out how it drops and explodes. Then we do a slight remesh. We still want to kind of see all the details, but we still want to see all the details because there's no sort of a normal map. We can add our own with noise, I think. That the thing that we'll be doing as far as I remember. Then yeah, I add the UVs back using lapse auto UV. Then this null is just like sort of a out well, so it basically says that we end our preparation step and now we can go and do some RBD. Here in the RBD material fracture material type, for me it's set concrete because I tried wood and I tried glass, and honestly the one that for me looks best, it's the concrete. Definitely the concrete. Here you can see that primary fracture scatter points is set to 3 in the first layer, and it's set to 10 in the first layer. Chipping is enabled, chipping ratio set to 0.3. In the detail, I think it's all on default here, and in the constraints I just unchecked use tags. So that's basically it. For the UV unwrap, it was crucial to unwrap the tiniest bits that those chips. If you are not using chipping, you can skip this UV unwrap here, but I really wanted to UV unwrap them to be able to kind of UV them, kind of assign materials and UV those materials separately for each of these pieces. So yeah, just be sure that you select the group concrete chipping inside, because I wanted just those faces that are facing inside. Let me show you where it is. Yeah, basically all these little chips and their inside faces. Unfortunately, I don't see which of their faces are inside or outside, but yeah. So basically, yeah, you can wrap them. Then RBD configure, and this is really cool thing that I saw. I think I saw that on the Resilient Picture Company YouTube channel just like a while ago when I was doing RBD for some of my like NFTs or something. And here the RBD configure, in my case, it's all, I think, yeah, it's all default. But in the RBD bullet solver, there are a few things that I want to share with you. Here in the forces, I don't need gravity, right? And here, really interesting part with the constraints. So in the RBD bullet solver constraints, breaking thresholds, soft hard will be here for default. And here you want to check add frame and mode delete constraints. I think it's default also. So here you want to set this add frame to be the previous frame of the frame that you want the explosion to happen. For me, it's the frame 4 where the explosion happens. So yeah, I set this frame to be frame number 3. And then I think we can go in RBD bullet solver here, and here you can see I have a subsolver and enable solver. And again, I learned that from the Resilient Picture Company YouTube. The guy there has many cool simulation tutorials, so be sure to check it out too. So here what I do is just add this point of velocity with here in the basic frame sample 0 and curl noise, setting this checkbox checked. So add curl noise and animate and scale. In my case, it's 10 because I want really like huge explosion with lots of velocity and all that stuff. And then, yeah, I think we can file cache it. So I'm caching 120 frames because I know that I will be using a lot of retime, slow motion. So yeah, just cache it out. So it looks like this. You can see it's really super fast, and yeah, at frame 120 everything is basically gone. So I think we will be working with just these 30 frames. We will retime it and like 2 or 3 times slower. So yeah, I think we should be good. Now let's check what we have here with all of our additional debris and particles. So from this file cache, I have 3 outputs. So first, I configure my RBD. What I need to do is unpack it. Let's go here. So you see now we have our UVs back. I want to create the attribute called speed. It's a float attribute, default and value for now, those are 0. And then I split. And I split by group, so concrete chipping inside. Look, here I have all the things that are not in the group chipping inside, so I don't have inside faces of these chips. And here I have just the inside faces of those chips. And here what I want to do is I want to select speed to be equal to the length on the velocity vector. And this is a good way to achieve float from the velocity vector in this particular case. And what I want to do here is I can bind the speed to rough approximation of the maximum speed I see here in the geometry spreadsheet. You can see it, I think, here, speed. So here you can see it goes from 0 to 25. You can use 25 here. I'm just using 15 because it visually, I like it more. So basically, the colors here depend on the speed. Here you can see that because the speed is 0, our faces are colored in the deep orange color. And when we go and they try and they start flying away, it's hard to see white color, but for example, here, this part is white. This looks pretty good on render though. And then we merged all together. And then of course I add a retime node. So for this retime node, the actual speed will be 30% of the actual speed, and output frame range 1 to 300, input frame range 1 to 100. And basically, yeah, I want this explosion to happen at the frame 4, and then at frame like 12, I think, I'm already in this 0.3 speed here. So yeah, that's our primary fracture, and I just wanted to add some more like fireflies, you know, or dust or something. So yeah, we can use this debris source, really cool node. Here you can play with all of these values. For me, I just modified the distance threshold and the speed threshold and volume threshold. because somewhere, and I think in this, yeah, the big particles. So these big particles are the ones that we emit in smaller amount, but they are bigger and they glow. And these particles should be called small. These are more like a dust that's not that shiny. So here we plug the debris source into our popnet, and you can see here in the source first input, source is set to points, burst is set to constant burst rate, set to 1000. So you can see not that many of these particles. Then I add attribute wrangle, same speed, colorizing them, basically absolutely the same thing as I did here, and that same, absolutely the same retime node. And when we go to the debris source, here I think it's yeah, still same and default, but here in the pop network, I emit 80,000 particles for the first 10 frames of the simulation. And I added a bit of pop wind, so as you can see, a lot more particles, and yeah, they are more like a, I don't know, dust explosion or something. But yeah, let's file cache both of them. Our fireflies are here and our dust also here. For this dust, you can really see how it goes, how the velocity actually works here. It's quite a cool effect though. Yeah, nice. All right, so what we can do here is we want to visualize our fracture, and we want to create two additional geometry nodes. So in one that's called fireflies, we drop object merge, and here in the object we select our big particles, and here in the dust we select our small particles. This is mainly done because these should be rendered as particles. Here you can see that for the dust, redshift obj particles render objects as particles, global scale multiplier set to 0.1, and for these fireflies that should be bigger, render object as particles is also checked, and global scale multiplier set to 0.3. So if I enable both of them, yeah, now we see. So now let me check which camera should we use. Yeah, definitely camera 1. Let's split pane as we did. Now let's check redshift render view. Let's reload our render window here, and with a lot of post effects, we are here with this one. Now let's enable the lights. So here you can see I'm using one large backlight, one kind of key light, and one fill light that's also from this side. Let me go through them real quick. So one RS light is, yeah, from this side, and it's very far away. Second one is your default backlight, which is here, intensity set to 40 and size set 10 by 10, so it's a pretty big one. And another RS light is this key light. Cool, so now let's check out the materials. Let me change the camera to camera 2 so we can actually zoom in a little bit and see the noise, because we actually added a bit of noise here. Let me remove this one just for now and check. Actually, we are not using the texture that came with this model, so yeah, it's just, let's select this as a diffuse color. There is nothing like super interesting here. It's just one noise, which is really like subtle, really subtle noise. Another noise which is really detailed with all these cracks, and then the noise that's used to mix between them. So yeah, let me just diffuse color, and this is, yeah, just the noise that mixes. I think there's some issue with the UVs, but I don't think that it will influence our final render. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. If we plug this RS mix material here, you can see the noise here, that how it looks like. And we can plug that exact same noise to our overall and bump input. And now you see much more detail. You can see that we have some channels or some places where it's much less noise, and somewhere it's obviously much higher noise level. And as this RS mass mix vector, it uses these noises, and these noises are black and white. We don't want our call to be black and white. We want it to be from black to, let's say, like medium gray. Can say that it's light gray. So yeah, let's plug it back here, and here's our call. For all of our particles, which are here, chips material, fireflies material, and dust material, those all are very similar. So we drop particle attribute lookup, and we grab our color attribute, we plug it here into the overall emission color, For the chips, we want them to emit this beautiful kind of black body color. And I think I upped, yeah, the roughness is set to its maximum. Let's also zoom out just a bit so you can see everything. Here the emission weight is set to 10 and set it to 1, but yeah, I think I want something more, maybe 5 actually. Yeah, I think 10. I want them to shine more to like white glow rather than red or yellow. This fireflies material is absolutely the same, just yeah, it's basically absolutely the same. The emission, the color is plugged to emission channel, and the emission weight set to 10. These are all of these little fireflies here, and the material 4 is our dust material, and where we have emission set to 1 and the color is plugged to the diffuse channel also. Now the key point that actually sells this scene to me was adding motion blur. With a redshift 3.5 you can go to the redshift out here, redshift motion blur, and just check these deformation blur and instances particles blur. And I think here in the call you should go here, settings, render, check this mesh deformations blur from velocity attribute. I think it should be the same for all the other geometries that you want to be influenced with motion blur. So yeah, just in case, I checked this mesh deformations in the fireflies and for the dust. Yeah, actually I want to check that for the dust too. Right. Yeah, and then you basically go and render it out and check how your motion blur looks. For example, I can see that here are 2 of my particles, and here I see that the motion blur works correctly. You can experiment with the start and end. The more the distance between the start and end numbers, the more the motion blur is. These transformation instance steps, I would like to keep them around 3 to 5. Deformation particle steps also 5. Yeah, both of these checked. Yeah, that's it, I think. Again, a lot of post effects to really make it like shiny, make it bloom a lot. This is by far the most like dramatic shot from all of the shots we have here. So yeah, I really wanted it to be like in your face with all the effects and all that stuff, because after all of these actually kind of like fade, and I don't know, I will need to find that frame. I think this one, where we have all of these absolutely out of focus things, I will kind of slowly transition to the last shot. And I think we also can transition to the last shot of this sequence. And alright, so now we are at our last stage, our product reveal frame. This by far was the most intensive one, because my initial idea was to create like super realistic sand, and if you remember from my RBD morphing tutorial where we have that torus and the spheres and rocks morphing, so I copied the 6 types of rocks and then I tried to apply instances of these rocks to the sand, and although they are instances, it still was sort of an overkill for my laptop, so that's why I went back with just spheres, just different colored spheres, and I think it still looks really good. So let me open the render view, and this is how it looks. One of the like middle frames. I might go with oh yeah, of course. I might go with a slightly smaller radius scale here, but yeah, we'll see. For now, it's just a frame, and I want to show you the setup here. So we have our bottle, and we have our geometry, our sand particles, we have our materials, 3 lights, by the way, 3 lights, and 2 cameras. One is for the preview, one is our kind of main. Let's dive and check what we have for our particles here. For now, I will disable the redshift viewer. So what do we have here is we have our fragrance ABC thingy, which is basically the exact same model that we used before. Let me also add a stash here, just so we are kind of consistent. However, I realized that in terms of like formatting, this project is not that consistent, and I'm really sorry for that. I hope that you are not upset, especially those guys who like enjoyed my tutorials mainly because I have everything very neatly organized. Again, this project is a bit of an overkill, and I'm really pushing hard and working many hours a day to get this on time. So we have our stash here, transform VDB from polygons. So yeah, we just transform this voxel size 0.01, make VDB from the polygons of our bottle. And here we have our grid. We displace it with a mountain. We extrude it, and you see how bad it is here, but VDBs will fix that. So here we have our fixed VDB, voxel size 0.02. Now we do VDB SDF subtract, and because our mesh here, our bottle is placed inside of this very ugly, but by the way, very cool abstract stuff here. Yeah, what we can do now is do VDB SDF subtract, operation set to SDF difference. And now if we do this points from volume, or actually let me visualize. So let's just for this one, let's convert it back to VDB. Sorry, to polygons, and you can see that we have absolutely brilliant, like, yeah, now you can see it when it's inversed. So we have this shape of our fragrance bottle inside of our crazy geometry here. So yeah, let's bring back this one. And now we do points from volume, source type geometry, point separation 0.03, which is pretty low. We have 1,734,000 particles here, and yeah, they're cool. I mean, they are exactly what we need. But simulating all of that will be a complete overkill. So what I want to do is just simulate the top layer being blown off. What we can do here is select this, drop this active group, which is our regular group. Group name, I'm calling that active group. And base group should be every point that is located under 1.2 by y-axis. So you see all of these points won't be affected by any sort of forces, even gravity. They won't be simulated. So here, what I can do is colorize the active group in black. Now you can see that only these white points, only them are active and they will be simulated. Then we drop a vellum constraints grains, like vellum configure grain, this one. Here, particle size is set to 0.013. I can visualize that here. You can see our hills of sand, sort of. For the vellum solver, and that's interesting. So for the solver, substep set to 3, collision passes 15, forces, gravity set to -3. We don't need -9 as it is by default. I increased the cache memory. Yeah, I don't know, it works for Macs. I never had this issue with a Windows laptop, but yeah, for the Macs, I should increase this cache memory size. So yeah, then I go inside a vellum solver, and what I see here is pretty interesting. So let's check. What we want to do is here in the subsolver, because again, vellum doesn't know nothing about the colors, the groups. It doesn't know about that. So we go into the subsolver, our dop geometry, and our object merge. Our object merge is this color 2, which should be named properly. Let's do it in a quick way. So boom, out, sand. Nice. Now if we go into the vellum solver, into the subsolver, we can grab out sand. Nice. Again, vellum solver and no white pop back. But yeah, now we have this one, and this has this group, point group, active group. See? Now we can drop it group copy and copy this point group, active group to the dop geometry, because we have our dop geometry, basically the geometry that vellum sees and vellum works with. It's called dop geometry. And we can select this group. If we visualize it, you see the active group is 0, but if we just calculate one frame and cancel it, now you see that active group has all our particles. And here in the attribute triangle, that's really crucial. I want to reset the color, but you can skip that part. The other thing that I want to do is select the stopped attribute. It should be equal 3. There are 4 states. I don't remember for now, but I will attach the screenshot that will explain these 3 states of particles. So now let's escape from that and let's go back to the volume solver. So what I want to do here is, we know that our forces, like any sort of forces, will apply only to these white particles here, to this group. So in the pop wop, I'm adding just really basic curl noise, which is absolutely default. I mean, I haven't touched anything here. And after that, we also attach pop wind velocity -8. Maybe we could add a bit of amplitude, 0.2, I think. And pop drag, a resistance set to 3. And pop color, I don't know, do we need it? I don't think so. All right, so now what we have here is pop wop, and you see here the activation is set to simulation frame less than 60. So we are applying our curl noise forces till the frame 60. For the pop wind, same story. And the drag, we need it all the way till the end of the simulation. But basically, I want all these forces to influence our send till the frame 60, so 2 seconds. So then I have like 3 seconds or something for all the send to settle down, and that's our final back shot of the product. Of course, you should simulate that to the disk, to the file cache, because yeah, that's one of a pretty. Yeah, I think I want to simulate 150, because you see here, and the frame 120 is still not settled down. Yeah, so for the animation part, I will need to resim that with a different forces. But yeah, that's for now. We have our forces, we have our RnD. Our client will love that. So yeah, it's all good. We also want to colorize our particles, because it's a sand, and sand, it's basically millions of variations of different tiny things, different rocks, different corals, I don't know, anything. So what I want to do here is drop attribute randomize, and attribute name should be PTID. So it's some sort of, yeah, ID. I wanna add that random ID to every particle at random order, and I want it to be somewhere from 0 to 10. So I have basically different variations of the colors. And here you can see that I dropped a color node, attribute is set PTID, range 0 and 10, as we did in our attribute randomize. Note that dimensions here should be set to 1. I think it's 3, by the way. So yeah, and here I have just like a default color palette for sand. I just googled sand color palette, and if I visualize that, you can see that all our particles are sort of different in a really slight way. They are all still looking kind of same, I don't know. Yeah, so that's for this setup here. For our bottle, it's exactly the same thing. I just added UV layout so I can place the labels here. It's the same exact setup as we did in scene 3 and 4, I think. So for the materials, yeah, this one is cool. So here you can see I tried all of these rocks and I assigned different materials to them, but now we're using spheres, and I'm perfectly fine with using spheres. It looks really good. So we don't need it. What we can do here is attach this to this. Yeah, let's go one by one, and let's maybe also visualize and get our redshift render preview. Bear with me on that. So we want both of these to be visible, and here let's again split pane to bottom and add new folder, new pane tab, redshift render view. All right, object, camera, and nice. We have everything we need. Also, the light setup here is pretty interesting, but yeah, we will talk about it later. Let's start with our materials. So what we have here is this cap material, same as in the scene 3 and 4, is just plastic, minimum roughness, deep, dark, very dark blue color. For the cap base, it's that same aluminum. For the grid material, we actually don't need grid, I think, right? Yeah, we don't need it. And for the sand material, it's a bit rough, 0.7 in roughness, and RS attribute lookup CD grabs the color attribute from the particle and applies that to the sphere that it's rendering. All right, now I think we are getting to the interesting part. So actually now you cannot see it that much, but if I hide the geometry here, you will see that this bottle actually has a gradient from very dark to sort of a deep blue. If you Google the images, the photos that they take, because it's a glass and glass is kind of transparent, right? It's see-through, and it basically depends on what background they are shooting these bottles. Because if they shoot on the white background, it will be much brighter than if they shoot it on the black background. So here is kind of the same deal. But you can see that I'm using, for the bottle itself, I'm using tinted glass preset, and here in the transmittance color, I'm using this, where it is, I'm using this RS ramp, and this is basically, yeah, your vertical ramp. So the top of the bottle is black, and as it goes down, it's sort of this deep blue color, and this RS scalar ramp, which is from 0 to 1 numerical value, it's used here in the absorption scale. It was still hard for me to understand in Redshift, because, you know, I'm doing this stuff in Redshift for like, I don't know, 1 month maybe. I was an Octane user, and in the Octane you can access this subsurface with a lot easier approach that's not that dependent on actual combination of the values you are using for transmittance, absorption, scatter, all that stuff. So yeah, here what do we have? We drop this material, our bottle material, to the material blender, because if we don't do that and just, yeah, attach it to our out, we just get our bottle without any sort of labels, and we need to attach them. So here are two textures, logo, and let me remove this one and update it like this, our Savage label. What we have here is material blender with two layers. We have our base color, which is our base material, which is our bottle, and then we have two materials, or actually, yeah, just one material, which is just white paint, right? And this material is used 2 times in 2 layers, and the blend color is this texture map, which actually looks like this. So it's basically black and white, sort of a mask, you know, when it's black and doesn't blend, or it's basically nothing, and when it's something white on that mask, it grabs this material. I scaled it down and added offsets. It was pretty tricky to align them, but yeah, that's it. It's pretty easy to set them, but yeah, again, for the complex materials like the glass was always complex, but I mean, Octane was a little bit easier to understand what parameters you need to tweak. All right, so now I think we want to talk about the lights. Let me enable the sand particles, and here let me disable all of them, and let's go one by one. So this RS Light 4 is sort of a spotlight, right, for our bottle. If I enable it, you can see that area shape is set to disk, spread is 0.837, size is much smaller. So I really wanted a, yeah, like a spotlight effect. But you see that our bottle is very boring, and we want something to light it up, but we want to light only the bottle. So here you can drop an RS light, another RS light, and here in objects you can enable light mesh associations, and you can say that light enabled for and shadows enabled for, and here we just drag and drop our geo. So if I enable it right now, you can see that there is this cool highlight here, but the sand is not influenced in any way by that light here. And now I want to bring a bit of like bluish night tint or something. So what I do is just create RS Light Sun. Let's turn it on. And yeah, it's just a bit of that blue tint. Sun disk scale set to 5, night color set to like this bluish color, intensity 0.1, so really low intensity. And on top of that, I think we can add some sort of a post effects. I think we should, if we make it a little bit bigger. Oh, we actually have some post effects, right? For the photographic exposure, maybe we want to add, oh yeah, something like this. For the color controls, yeah, less exposure and maybe a bit more contrast, but because I really wanted it to be like a spotlight thing here. But yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good with this one, and that's how we create this sort of a sand reveal. Of course, I added motion blur as I did in our previous charcoal explosion. Here, motion blur, deformation blur, instance particle blur, all checked. 3 steps. Start 0.25 and 0.55, so not that much of a motion blur, but still it really needs that motion blur. Seriously, trust me. So yeah, all right, that's it for this week. I really hope you learned a lot from this tutorial. Again, if something is not clear, please feel absolutely free to reach out. This is first time I'm combining all of these setups in one big tutorial. I know that it might be very hard to digest in one day, so please split it up. If you think that I haven't covered something enough, you can always ask me to do a separate tutorial about this or that effect that you saw in this video. I will be more than happy to do it live or to record it as I do it, not like do a breakdown post factum. So yeah, again, hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back very, very soon. Bye.